Hello, and welcome back to what I wished I'd known about self publishing before I got started. I am Karlie with Dragon Key Press. I finally have my laptop back. Apparently, I can't talk today, but it's one of those days, and outside the people are being loud, and sorry if you can hear that. Anyway, just as a heads up, we are drawing close to an end for this particular podcast. I will probably update with episodes as changes to self publishing come around because there's a lot coming up there, especially with the whole introduction of artificial intelligence. And honestly, I'm not happy about that one because I think it takes the creativity away from the human. But, that's just me. Today, I really wanted to talk about book signings and in-person promotions. Now, I don't have as much experience with these as a lot of other authors out there, both traditional and self-published indie type authors. And part of that's just a lack of me putting myself out there, and part of that is just a lack of opportunity. But I have found some of the best places to actually try and do book signings and the like are at library book festivals or book fairs or at things like markets for, farmers market type venues. Places where you can, if you know the event's going to happen, sign up in advance. Some of them you do have to pay for your spot for. And some of them you can get in for free. Just depends on where it's at. And then some places, like the state of Texas, actually offer a membership to get into actual grocery stores and other similar venues to sell your books in person. I've done that one a few times because I do live in Texas. I've also done some of the library book fairs and the occasional workshops here, there, and yonder. But like I said, my experience with it is limited, so this is just how I've experienced things. They can be very intimidating, especially if it's your first time. But don't let that stop you from trying to do them, because it also offers a valuable opportunity to network, especially if you're doing book fairs, because there's going to be a lot of other authors there. And hopefully they're a mix of both independent and traditionally published. But if they have more experience than you, they can kind of give you some pointers, some tips, and things like that. I have found that it is helpful to have some kind of signage to help advertise yourself, because the point of going to these things is to draw attention to yourself. And yeah, I know there are those of us out there who are introverted. I am an introvert. I'm not going to lie about that one. And find it incredibly intimidating, especially if you're not used to putting yourself out there. And it can be very scary. And when you don't actually feel like you're actually getting anywhere, it can be very disheartening. But even traditionally published authors have issues with this, where it might not go as well as they think it should, or they're just not getting the exposure that they were hoping for. So don't let that discourage you from actually trying to put yourself out there. My first book event was actually at a library in not quite downtown Dallas, this really kind of small, obscure library, and I had no clue what I was doing. I had signage that I had pretty much printed at home, and it did not look that great. It was basically just me printing off a copy of my cover in a larger size, and then a little price menu of sorts for the books that I had to offer. And when you're doing these events, you do need to provide your own books. Just keep that in mind. So you will actually have to go up and buy so many copies of your book. Go for the author promo when you're doing this, especially if you're doing it through Ingram or KDP. They do have author pricing so that you basically pay just the price of production, not the retail price. So that when you sell it in person, you get to keep the extra based off of how much you sell, and just don't overprice them. It's been my experience that you should price anything you sell in person at least $1 under what it's selling for online. But just remember, what it's selling for online counts the cost of production plus whatever party you're going through's cut, and then what you get to take home. So technically speaking, if you sell in person, you make more than if you're selling online, unless you're selling it through your own website and not through a third party. So just keep that in mind. And if it is your first time, kind of be modest about how many books you decide to take with you, because chances are good nobody knows who you are, but you want enough that people who may be intrigued can actually get a copy of your book. I would suggest maybe 10 to 15 of each for your first one and just see how it goes from there. If you end up selling out, then you know for next time to get more. And if you don't, well, you still have a bunch you can take to the next time. But don't be disheartened if you don't sell any at all, because chances are good people are just kind of looking around just to see what's there. Some of them may just be window browsing, window shopping, whatever you want to call it. And they may not have the money on them, but this could also lead to online sales later on. So don't discount even what seems like a bad in-person event. If people come and look and seem interested, chances are good they will remember you, especially if you have something they can take home with them, like a business card or a bookmark. I might say in some cases you can do some promotional items like keychains and stuff, but if you're going to do that, make sure you have the budget for that. Because even keychains, if made in bulk, they get pricey, which is why I suggest doing business cards and or bookmarks, because they're not as horrible on the budget. And you can order them in bulk from any printing press like Shutterfly or any of those other mass market printers out there. And they can go for like pennies per thing. But having something there that they can take home to kind of remind them about you, especially if they took the time to actually stop by your table, booth, whatever, to look at what you have. And you'd be surprised how well this actually works. I've had people who have stopped by at my table when I've been at a grocery store and they didn't have the money to buy my book in person, but they later bought it online. And yes, I don't get as big of a cut, but at least I get something. And if they like the book, then maybe they tell their friends about it who end up going and buying it. And I've actually had people who've come and said, hey, are you going to be here tomorrow or next week selling books? Because I'll be paid by then and have the money for it. And some of these venues, like the program to be in grocery stores, actually allow you to schedule several days at the same location in case somebody decides, hey, I can't buy it today, but I can buy it tomorrow. And that kind of helps you out. I don't know if other states offer this kind of program. That's something you can kind of ask other fellow authors out about. But I do know Texas does have that. As far as book fairs, especially with libraries, those are probably going to be a lot better than trying to get into a Scholastic book fair. Because let's face it, Scholastic book fairs only want to do Scholastic books. Some schools might have book fairs where they allow other authors in, but it's been my experience that's not as big of a thing. So looking at libraries and farmers markets are going to be your best bet there. However, you can also look at bookstores. Independent bookstores are probably more likely to take indie and or self-published authors, but don't discount the possibility that you can get into other stores too. I have heard of people who are independently published who have gotten into Costco or into shops and other venues that have something related to the content of their book. Some people have been able to get into coffee shops, sporting goods stores. I had a friend who wrote a book about poker who got into a store selling poker type things. So don't ever limit yourself to just those traditional type things with the book fairs and stuff. You never know unless you approach the owner managers of these stores. Out here in Texas and surrounding areas, we have Half Price Books, and they love to do book events for authors. You just have to talk to the right person and get things arranged through them. So it's going to take a lot of legwork sometimes to get these things set up. And yes, it is intimidating. And sometimes it's just a flat out no in your face. Don't let that discourage you. If this is something you truly want to do, keep going. Yes, your feelings and your ego might get hurt a bit, feel free to mourn a little bit and then dust off that writer's crown of yours and just get back on that horse and try again. I've been out of the game a little bit myself lately because, everybody's being hit by hard times, but I'm full-heartedly planning on it, getting back into it as soon as I possibly can. Another way you can actually do in-person interactions as well is writers' conferences often have a bookstore, and a bunch of them will actually let you get your books into that bookstore for either a little additional cost, or if you're on as a panelist or something, they might let you actually put your books in for free. So keep that in mind as a possibility also. And if you can get in a writer's conference, no matter how small it is, as a panelist or an industry guest, it's well worth doing that in-person thing as well. I recently did one in Kanab, Utah, and granted, my class that I didn't have a whole lot of people in it, but it made an impact on those who actually did go to the class. And they have talked about it with other people. So that kind of word of mouth gives you the opportunity to gain a greater audience in the future if you decide to go to similar or other venues. So never negate in-person type things. Conferences, book signings that you can hopefully get, in-person sales with stores and such, if you can get into a program like that. Farmers markets. Yes, you have to pay for a booth and it sucks, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. And as a business, you have to spend money to make money. So just make sure whatever you do, whatever options you decide to go for, that it's within your budget. And don't forget, your budget isn't just the monetary stuff. It's also what you can handle physically, mentally, emotionally, and time-wise. Keep that in mind when you look at the options and decide what works best for you and what you can handle. And don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen quite the way you want, because, we're all struggling right now. Everybody's kind of hit that hard time. But persistence will pay off. If you can get through publishing your book, get through all the ups and downs of basically being 100-person team as one person or a couple other people, if you have to outsource some stuff, you can do the marketing. You can do that in-person stuff. And it's okay to ask for help with these kinds of things too. Because there are options where you can actually have somebody kind of be there to figuratively help hold your hand. And I've had to do that occasionally. My husband's done that for me at some of my first book fairs, and it was probably boring as crap for him, but, he was there to give me his support. And if you can have friends or family who are willing to do that for you to help you get through the rough couple of first goes, by all means, take advantage of it. You will not regret it. And maybe it doesn't make a big blip in your book sales, but let's face it, the main reason to put yourself out there where the public can see you is so the public can see you. The book sales are icing on the cake. If you look at it that way and you remember that's how it's pretty much supposed to be, it will be a success no matter what happens, as long as you're able to interact with some people. And I'm not saying just go out and throw yourself, look at me, I'm a big top circus, blah, 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 headmaster of the show. Most people don't like you to get in their faces. I'm just putting that out there as, a little warning. Be there, and if they're curious, let them come up. And then by all means, get animated and talk to them about your stuff and try not to be too awkward. But know that some people will overlook the awkwardness because that makes you real. And if you go to a book fair and stuff and you see some of your favorite authors, because, hey, let's face it, sometimes that happens. I mean, I met James Owen at a book conference, and I literally froze and freaked out. But, just if you do have yourself in that situation, just remember, they're people too. They're human beings. They have their idols. And don't treat them like they're on this giant pedestal and up next to God or anything like that, because they're human beings, and they like to be treated like human beings and not like some high object of worship. You keep that in mind, and everything will be good, and they will be more than willing to talk to you and maybe give you some pointers. Keep those things in mind, and any in-person things you do, whether you going to see other authors or you trying to promote yourself, will go well, even if they don't seem to. Practice makes perfect, and repeated motions help ingrain that impression of you into other people. Just make sure that impression you're making is a good impression and not you being a pushy, shovey showman, salesman. You do that, and I can't 100% guarantee that you will make bank, but you will definitely help your books out and help your brand. I hope you gained some insight, some knowledge, my personal experiences on this matter, my soliloquy on in-person stuff. As ever, feel free to leave comments, questions, suggestions, so forth, etc. I am more than willing to answer them. As some people have already found out, I do my best. Sometimes it takes me a minute, but I definitely do my best to respond in a timely manner. I am Karlie with Dragon Key Press. I hope to see you next time. Not sure how many of these we will have left, but hope to see you down through the end. See you next time.